Next, we're going to have a completely different topic. I mean, these days, we know that cameras are watching us in the street much of the time when we're out, and that, of course, now even devices in our own homes can listen to us. So should we be scared? Well, we will find out now from Richard Vogler, who is Professor of Comparative Criminal Law and Criminal Justice. Now, he's been teaching criminal law and criminology at Sussex since 1987 and has worked as a specialist advisor on criminal justice reform for governments in a number of countries around the world, including China, Georgia, and Ukraine. Thanks.
Sorry? Thank you very much, Claudia. I made the mistake of choosing a title for myself which was way too long, and I was at a conference some while ago where they tried to get my name on one of these, and the last word had fallen off the end. So I walked around the whole conference saying I was a professor of comparative criminal law and criminal, which didn't go down well. Anyway, I'm going to be talking to you today about big data policing, and I'm trying to scare you. I apologize for that. I'm going to start with a story which I'm sure you will know, that in March 2020, Wayne Couzens, a serving police officer, abducted and killed Sarah Everard in London. He was a serving police officer, so he knew where all the CCTV cameras were, but he hadn't reckoned with a bus going past, which would have a camera which shone and clocked him, clocked his car, and clocked the victim, with the result that he was arrested and he was brought to justice and is not out there committing offences. It's a good illustration of the way that technology is transforming our criminal justice, and we are at the beginning of a huge revolution in security and criminal justice, where we are seeing building around us the architecture of security in our cities, which is going to be transformative, the biggest security and policing change in our lifetimes, I think. And some big programs like, for example, the DAS system, the Domain Awareness System in New York, where you have CCTV smart cameras and license plate sensors and gunshot sensors and sensors which check up on sewerage to see whether there's narcotic drugs in it. Put all that information, as they do, with records from courts and warrants and so on, means that every police officer has that information analysed to his phone or her phone and to their tablet, and they can see what's happening. There are no strangers anymore. This is called surveillance assemblage. You put together lots of different things, different types of data, and analyse it through an algorithm and produce some extraordinary results. About 50 years ago, a famous and famously bald French philosopher called Michel Foucault analysed the prison called a panopticon, which was a prison in which the prisoners are always under observation. They don't know whether they're being observed at any given time, but they think they might be. And Foucault called this a disciplinary space, because you were always being controlled so you didn't do anything bad. Another generation of French philosophers, led by Gilles Deleuze, later on, suggested that the panopticon prison, the disciplinary space, had expanded to the whole world. And we are all in the panopticon, because we are all being observed. And there are all kinds of different observations, as Claudia mentioned. Coming here today, you will have been clocked by numbers of different CCTV cameras. Perhaps you used the sat-nav when you came here, or maybe you were on your phone, or you bought something, or you used your debit card. You left an incredible electronic trail behind you, which could be used to geolocate you, to identify what your interests were and the kind of person you were. And this is an incredible development for policing, and it's really put in huge new tools at the hands of police officers. I want to say 4 things about this, because I've only got 10 minutes. The first is that a lot of this work is being done by private companies. The company that ran the DAS system in New York, or runs the DAS system in New York, is Microsoft. And they have a deal with the NYPD that they sell this project all around the world. It's been bought by the police in Singapore and Brazil and all kinds of places, and NYPD get 30% on that. And there are other companies all around the world. Hitachi are in it. There's a company called Hunch Lab and CompStat, and they're competing for market share to get a share of this surveillance business. And it's a very, very intense market. But we're giving all this stuff to private companies who then sell it to the police. And this is rather alarming in the sense that some of my colleagues argue that our idea of state policing, national policing, is just a historical blip over a couple of 100 years. That in the long term, security is going to be commercial. It's going to be run by private companies in the future because they've got all the data and the technology. And that's something to think about. The second point I want to make is that we give all this stuff to the companies voluntarily. We aren't forced to do it. In order to get lower insurance premiums, we allow our insurance company to track our car and the way that we drive, whether we commit driving offences. We give them this stuff. It's called IKEA-valence. It's a means of us just voluntarily putting things in our houses, our home hub, which will listen to us the whole time, and will also take pictures of us. Our fridge, as Claudia said, can have sensors in to see what kind of stuff we're putting in our fridges. And almost everything we do, we are sending messages up into the cloud. Our doorbell may take pictures of people coming to visit us. That goes up into the cloud, can be put under surveillance. And the question I'd like to ask you, and we haven't got time to discuss it, but maybe afterwards, is if somebody in their house is carrying out domestic abuse or is getting involved in abusing children or building bombs, do you want that information to be clocked by the authorities, or is that private? And it's a huge question that we need to think about. The third thing I want to say about these technologies are that they're making a big shift from our traditional idea of crime, which was you commit an offence, the police investigate it, you go to court, and retrospectively you are punished for it, to what is called pre-crime. Now, all these systems which operate around the world are based upon predictive work. The DAS in New York has something called the predictor, a computer, an algorithm which goes in and analyzes everything and works out what's going to happen in the future, heat maps where crimes are going to happen. And that clearly is changing our whole conception of criminal justice towards predicting crime. Fourthly, because I can see there's 2 minutes, I hope that's what you're saying, 2 minutes. Fourthly, a lot of this technology is self-executing. And I'll give you the example in China particularly. If you jaywalk in certain cities, China claims to have 200 million smart CCTV cameras that can recognize you within seconds. They claim that they can identify you as a jaywalker, send a fine to your phone instantly before you've got to the other side of the road, and big a big picture of you up on the hoarding to shame you. And the social credit system in China, which does something similar, divides everybody, has been working since 2020, into red lists and black lists. So algorithmically, if you get drunk too much and you fight with your neighbor, or you don't pay your bills, or you say bad things about the government, you go onto a blacklist. And that blacklist will then stop you buying tickets in the trains. You'll go to the bottom of the list for anything to do with the government, and it will make your life a misery. And something like 14 million Chinese have already been censored in this way, censured in this way. And it's, conversely, if you do good things, then you're going to be praised, and you're going to be on red lists, so you get the schools your children want to go to, and you get high on the list. This is all done algorithmically, and we need to think about the implications of this, because we are all living in the panopticon. it's going to get more and more panoptic. The only question for us is what kind of panopticon we want to live in, and do our traditional protections of due process, privacy, proportionality, the things that have worked in our law up to now, will they work against the private companies and the predictions and the equivalence that we're going to look at and see in future? I'd like to discuss that with you, but I've run out of time, so I can't. But thank you very much, everybody.